Hey everybody, we're going to be continuing Jordan Peterson, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. This is the fourth rule. We're going to be continuing with it. The second part of the fourth rule is compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. And I like this rule. It's like you don't want to. It means like you don't want to compete with anybody else but yourself. But it does like go against a few things that he says. Like he is pretty much like concrete or cemented when he's like, if you're 35 or 40 and you haven't made it yet, or you have this problem, good luck, because your chance of having any kind of life, good life is terrible or something. And then it's like, he's also like, well, intelligence is the biggest precursor to see if somebody will be successful, the intelligence. And then I think he says like, and the ability to like wait for gratitude, like the marshmallow test. I'm sure he's familiar with that. But he doesn't act like there's like some like gray area. There's some like differences. I have a really high intelligence, but that doesn't mean I've been necessarily successful. I know he doesn't bring up neuroticism or like a different. You could be your nature and nurture. You could be born with an extremely great brain, but you could have like been left on somebody's doorstep or been like a feral child like myself. Okay, continuing, this little section is called Many Good Games. Standards of better or worse are not illusory or unnecessary. If illusory or unnecessary, if you hadn't decided that what you are doing right now was better than the alternatives, you wouldn't be doing it. The idea of a value-free choice is a contradiction in terms. Value judgments are a precondition for action. Furthermore, every activity once chosen comes with its own internal standards of accomplishment. If something can be done at all, it can be done better or worse. Hunter S. Thompson has a quote, anything worth doing is worth doing right. To do anything at all is therefore to play a game with a defined and valued end, which can always be reached more or less efficiently and elegantly. Every game comes with this chance of success or failure. Differential in quality are omnipotent. Furthermore, if there was no better or worse, nothing would be worth doing. There would be no value and therefore no meaning. Why make an effort if doing nothing improves anything? Meaning itself requires the difference between better or worse. How then can the voice of critical self-consciousness be stilled? Where are the flaws in the apparent impeccable logic of its message? We might start by considering the all too black and white words themselves, success or failure. You are either a success, a comprehensive, singular, overall good thing, or its opposite, a failure, a comprehensive, singular, irredeemable bad thing. The words imply no alternative and no middle ground. However, in a world as complex as ours, such generalizations, really such failure to differentiate, are a sign of naive, unsophisticated, or even malevolent analysis. I'm laughing because I was just saying how he doesn't talk about how there's any gray area, and he's just like making me look like an idiot. But anyways, because that's what he's talking about. Unsophisticated or even malevolent analysis. There are vital degrees and gradations of value obliterated by this binary system, and the consequences are no good. It's saying not to be judgmental in our exceptions. To begin there is not just one game in which to succeed or fail. There are many games, and more specifically, many good games. Games that match your talents, involve your productivity with other people, and sustain and even improve themselves across time. Lawyer is a good game. So is plumber, physician, carpenter, or school teacher. The world allows for many ways of being. If you don't succeed at one, you can try another. You can pick something better matched to your unique mix of strengths, weaknesses, and situation. Furthermore, if changing games does not work, you can invent a new one. I recently watched a talent show featuring a mime who taped his mouth shut and did something ridiculous with oven mitts. This was unexpected. That was original. It seemed to be working for him. It's also unlikely that you're playing only one game. You have a career and friends and family members and personal projects and artistic endeavors and athletic pursuits. You might consider judging your success across all the games you play. Imagine that you are very good at some, middling at others, and terrible at the remainder. Perhaps that's how it should be. You might object, I should be winning at everything. But winning at everything might only mean that you're not doing anything new or difficult. You might be winning, but you're not growing, and growing might be the most important form of winning. Should victory in the present take precedence over trajectory over across time? Finally, you might come to realize that the specifics of the many games you're playing are so unique to you, so individual, that comparison to others is simply inappropriate. Perhaps you are overvaluing what you don't have and undervaluing what you do. There's some real utility in gratitude. It's also good protection against the dangers of victimhood and resentment. Your colleague outperforms you at work. His wife, however, is having an affair while your marriage is stable and happy. Who has it better? The celebrity you admire is a chronic drunk driver and bigot. Is his life truly preferable to yours? When the internal critic puts you down using such comparisons, here's how it operates. First, it selects a single arbitrary domain of comparison, fame maybe, or power. Then it acts as if that domain is the only one that is relevant. Then it contrasts you unfavorably with someone truly stellar with that domain. It can take that final step even further, using the unbridgeable gap between you and its target as a comparison as evidence for the fundamental injustice of life. That way, your motivation to do anything at all can be most effectively undermined. Those who accept such an approach to self-evaluation certainly can't be accused of making things too easy for themselves, but it's just a big problem to make things too difficult. When we are very young, we are neither individual nor informed. We have not had the time that gained the wisdom to develop our own standards. In consequence, we must compare ourselves to others because standards are necessary. Without them, there is nowhere to go and nothing to do. As we mature, we become, by contrast, increasingly individual and unique. The condition of our lives becomes more and more personal and less comparable with that of others. Symbolically speaking, this means we must leave the house ruled by our Father and confront the chaos of our individual being. We must take note of our disarray without completely abandoning that Father in the process. We must then rediscover the values of our culture veiled from our ignorance, hidden in the dusty treasure trove of the past, rescue them, and integrate them into our own lives. This is what gives existence its full and necessary meaning. That was one of the greatest things I ever read. Who are you? You think you know, but maybe you don't. You are, for example, neither your own master nor your own slave. You cannot easily tell yourself what to do and compel your own obedience, any more than can easily tell your husband, wife, son, or daughter what to do and compel theirs. You are interested in some things and in others. You can shape the interest, but theirs are limits. Some activities will always engage you, and others simply will not. You have a nature. You can play the tyrant to it, but you will certainly rebel. How hard can you force yourself to work and sustain your desire to work? How much can you sacrifice to your partner before generosity turns to resentment? What is it that you actually love? What is it that you genuinely want? Before you can articulate your own standards of value, you must see yourself as a stranger, and then you must get to know yourself. What do you find valuable or pleasurable? How much leisure, enjoyment, and reward do you require so that you feel like more than that of a beast of burden? How much you treat yourself so you won't kick over the traces and smash up your quarrel? You could force yourself through your daily grind and kick your dog in frustration when you come home. You could watch the precious days tick by, or you could learn how to entice yourself into sustainable, productive activity. Do you ask yourself what you want? Do you negotiate fairly with yourself, or are you a tyrant with yourself as slave? What do you dislike about your parents, your spouse, or your children, and why? What might be done about that? What do you need and want from your friends and your business partners? This is not a mere matter of what you should want. I'm talking about what other people require from you, or your duties to them. I'm not talking about what other people require from you or your duties to them. I'm talking about determining the nature of your moral obligation to yourself. Should is your responsibility, and you should live up to it. But this does not mean you must take the role of lapdog, obedient and harmless. That's how a dictator wants his slaves. Dare instead to be dangerous, dare to be truthful, dare to be articulate yourself and express, or at least become aware of, what would really justify your life. If you allowed your dark and unspoken desires for your partner, for example, to manifest themselves, if you were even willing to consider them, you might discover that they were not so dark given the light of day. You might discover instead that you were just afraid and so pretending to be moral. You might find that getting what you actually desire would stop you from being tempted and straying. Are you so sure that your partner will be unhappy if you more rose to the surface? The femme fatale and the anti-hero are sexually attractive for a reason. How do you need to be spoken to? What do you need to take from people? What are you putting up with or pretending like from duty or obligation? Console your resentment. If revelatory emotion for all its pathology, it's part of an evil tirade, arrogance, deceit, and resentment. Nothing causes more harm than this underworld trinity. But resentment always means one of two things. Either the resentful person is immature, in which case he or she should shut up, quit whining, and get on with it, or there is tyranny afoot, in which case the person is subjected to has a moral obligation to speak up. Why? Because the consequence of remaining silent is worse. I think of the expression, bad things happen when good men do nothing. Of course, it's easier to the moment to stay silent and avoid conflict, but in the long term, there's deadly. When you have something to say, silence is a lie, and tyranny feeds on lies. When should you push back against oppression, despite the danger? When you start nursing secret fantasies of revenge, when your life is being poisoned and your imagination fills with the wish to devour and destroy. Wow. That's like how the Columbine killers, I'm sure he's kind of referencing them. I had a client decades ago who suffered from severe obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. He had to line up his pajamas just right before he could go to sleep at night. Then he had to fluff his pillow. Then he had to adjust the bed sheets. Over and over and over, I said, maybe that part of you, that insanely persistent part, wants something, inarticulate though it may be. Let it have its say. What could it be? He said. Control, I said. Close your eyes and let it tell you what it wants. Don't let fear stop you. You don't have to act it out just because you're thinking it. He said, it wants me to take my stepfather by the collar, put him up against the door, and shake him like a rat. Maybe it was time to shake someone like a rat, although I suggested a bit less primal. But God only knows what battles must be fought, forthrightly, voluntarily, on the road to peace. What do you do to avoid conflict, necessary though it may be? What are you inclined to lie about, assuming that the truth might be intolerable? What do you fake? The infant is dependent on his parents for almost everything he needs. The child, the successful child, can leave his parents, at least temporarily, and make friends. He gives up a little of himself to do that, but gains much in return. The successful adolescent must take the process to its logical conclusion. He has to leave his parents and become like everyone else. He has to integrate with the group so he can transcend his childhood dependency. Once integrated, the successful adult then must learn how to be just the right amount different from everyone else. I'm just thinking about my own life and my twin brother's life. How we never had that since we didn't have parents. We skipped around steps. Be cautious when you're comparing yourself to others. You're a singular being once you're an adult. You have your own particular specific problems, financial, intimate, psychological, and otherwise. They are embodied in the unique broader context of your existence. Your career or job works for you in a personal manner or it does not. And it does so in a unique interplay with the other specifics of your life. You must decide how much your time to spend on this and how much on that. You must decide what to let go and what to pursue. That was from Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules of Life. That was rule number 4, which is about comparing yourself to other people. It says, rule number 4 is compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. That was a very good chapter. I really enjoyed that. That was very helpful. This book is like 500 pages, so I can't. Sometimes the shorter books on this channel I was able to read ahead of time, but this I'm like just actually reading as I go. So I'm learning along with you guys about this great book. It came out a short while ago, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules from Life. I'm really totally enjoying it. I'm glad I got this. I think the next book I'm going to read is his first book, which is Maps of Meaning, which is also available at your local library. Once again, my name is Gregory Brandt. I'm also a writer and a teacher as well. You can check out my book. It's called Gonzo Education, and there's a playlist of it on my channel here on YouTube. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe. All right, thanks.